So how would you quantify the diversity in the field of thermal spraying? Now, are there multiple types of methods that experts like yourself might use?
Well, yeah, there's various different thermal spray systems out there. So we'll start with kind of some of the simplest. You have what's called combustion wire and combustion powder. Well, that's where you use a torch that you use a fuel such as acetylene or propane or propylene. You mix that with oxygen in the right ratio, the stoichiometric mix, and you create a flame. Then you feed a wire through that flame or you feed powder through that flame. The flame for acetylene is probably around 5,500 degrees Fahrenheit, which melts most metals and ceramics we deal with. So the material will go in there and it's inside that flame for some period of time, again, based on the type system we're using. But that metal or ceramic will melt and it's atomized with compressed gases and you spray it. So you've got the combustion powder, combustion wire. You also have what's called twin wire electric arc. In that case, you're taking two wires, you're running them together and striking an arc between the two wires. And that arc melts the wire. And then you use compressed air or other compressed gases. You can use other compressed gases to atomize that molten metal and again create the spray. Then we step up to something called plasma, where plasma systems use a plasma arc, very similar to the plasma arc that welders are used to using to actually burn holes through material or to cut materials using that plasma arc torch. And that's basically using inert gases, running them through a arc that's done with this plasma arc system and creating a plasma flame. It's not really a flame, but that's what everybody calls it. It's a plasma flame of high energy. And you feed a powder into that and melt it. Different way of melting it. Works really well with ceramics because ceramics have higher melting points. Then we also have high velocity oxygen fuel or high velocity air fuel. Both of those are systems where the flame, the combustion is contained inside the torch, which allows the expanding gases to accelerate to actually faster than the speed of sound. And we inject the metal or carbide particles, it's mostly carbide we use for that, inject the carbide particles into that flame and they get accelerated faster than the speed of sound. And they actually hit the material in a semi-molten, the material is accelerated and it's in a semi-molten state. And when it hits the part you're spraying, it gets flattened out because of the high velocity and the semi-molten state that it's in. When it hits, the kinetic energy from the velocity converts it and helps it melt it. And so it instantly melts and it forms like a splat. They call it a splatation. And you build it up that way. So that's another version. And there's an additional one called high velocity air fuel that uses air instead of oxygen for the combustion process. And there's some advantages, disadvantages to both. And that's a whole deeper conversation.
Yeah, I was just going to ask out of curiosity. I mean, it sounds like this process, you've obviously you're an expert in it. The sound levels, what kind of sound levels are these processes producing? Because it just there's a lot of moving parts moving very, very fast. I would imagine this is a very loud process.
Well, certainly, if you've ever seen a jet fighter take off and hit the afterburners, the shock patterns coming out of that, that's the kind of noise levels we're talking about. You can't be in the room without protection for the ears. Mm-hmm. So the HVOF is extremely loud and the plasma is loud also, but it's a different frequency. But we're exceeding 120 decibels, which you just can't go in a room without ear protection with those kind of sound levels. The combustion wire and combustion powder are lower volumes, but they still exceed 100 decibels. And there's OSHA guidelines on how long you can be exposed to those noise levels. So if anything struck your interest and want to find out some more information, take a look at our website, thermalspraydepot.com, or give us a call. The phone number is right there, or drop us an email. Our email address is right on thermalspraydepot.com.